welcome back to Cosmic Life Astrology. Today we are talking about Mercury Retrograde, something that we all love and look forward to, don't we? This Mercury Retrograde is beginning on July 18th, depending on your time zone. I'm talking about Eastern time, so if you're on the West Coast, this began on the 17th. But Mercury Retrograde will go through August 11th. It starts at 15 degrees of Leo and goes back to 4 degrees of Leo. For the past couple of weeks, as Mercury has been making its way through Leo, you may have seen some inklings of things that are going to be readdressed during the Mercury Retrograde period. This Mercury Retrograde cycle is really giving me the vibes of, wanting to have fun and pursue your passions, but something is requiring your attention. We do have Mercury in the passionate, fun, childlike sign of Leo. So we also are looking at, Leo is about our passions, our desires, where our loyalties lie. It's also about children. So those are some topics that may be highlighted during this retrograde time. And as we all know, Mercury retrograde loves to bring in some technology issues, as well as miscommunications, maybe some renegotiating is on the table for some of you. I know for me, since Mercury entered Leo, I have had nothing but tech issues. I have had internet issues. I have had issues with electronics in my household where I thought I had an electrical fire. Turned out some wiring from the pole to my house had to be fixed. So I have had a lot of Mercury retrograde fun even before the retrograde began. So I'm sure I'm not the only one who has seen some blips already start to happen as Mercury retrograde started to, dab its little toes into the water for us. We also begin this Mercury retrograde with a Mars conjunct the South Node, which means that there's something that we need to release and let go of. Mars conjuncting the South Node is also a lessening of the masculine Mars energy. So you may see that there are masculine people or figures who seem to feel depleted during this time or discouraged while the Mars is conjuncting the South Node. And this is why I began by saying that I feel like you want to have fun, you want to pursue your passions, but something's requiring your attention. With Mars conjunct the South Node, we're letting go of being able to pursue our passion and putting that aside, maybe momentarily, but there may be something bigger that you're releasing with this conjunction. We also have Mercury squaring Juno in Scorpio on July 18th, and Juno just stationed direct a week ago. I believe I mentioned it during the Cap full moon video because Juno went direct, I believe, the day of the Capricorn full moon. I can't remember offhand, but I thought that was interesting. That again is another indicator of, maybe some challenges with commitments of all sorts, whether it be romantic or otherwise, if you're committing yourself to doing too much, if you're committing yourself to too much work, or, maybe taking on too much in your life, or maybe overly focusing on one particular area of your life. Juno is mostly about romantic partnerships and commitments, but obviously, Scorpio is going to land in different houses for everyone. So this could be in different areas of your life where you have commitments. So keep that in mind as, this is all really backing up that feeling of something requiring your attention, not being able to pursue something that we may want to pursue, especially when it comes to, you know, enjoying ourselves and lighting up our life, whether it be through creativity with children or going after your desires, your passions. And we also have Mercury sextile Venus in Gemini when it begins the retrograde. So that, you know, when Venus is in Gemini, Venus is, you know, very fun and flirty, but also indecisive. You know, Gemini is a sign of the twins, so Venus could be, during its time in Gemini, you could be contemplating two different ideas, two different options. And with the Mercury station retrograde sextiling the Venus in Gemini, I think this is going to highlight something that you are going to be reconsidering during the retrograde cycle. It is a harmonious aspect to be making. So, you know, it does give that energy of, okay, you have to contemplate these two different directions or two different options. But during this period of contemplation and review, things will work out for your benefit. We also have Saturn and Neptune in retrograde conjuncting each other, and they're both making a sextile to Uranus in Gemini and Pluto retrograde in Aquarius. And so we have the outer planets involved during this time, speaking to each other in harmony, wanting us to, you know, restructure what it is that we're building in our life, what it is that we're trying to create in our world. You know, with Saturn and Neptune in Aries, you know, I've said that this is about creating the life that you want to live, you know, creating the person that you want to be, being more in tune with the identity that you have, and, you know, making sure that it's in line with who you are deep down inside. And, you know, Aries is all about the self. So, you know, Saturn and Neptune are trying to help us create something that is very in tune with who we are deep down inside. And Uranus in Gemini is going to help, I think, speedy up the process, because Uranus is unpredictable, and in Gemini, it is an air sign, so it does have more momentum than it did when it was in Taurus. And we also have Pluto in Uranus's home of Aquarius. So Uranus and Pluto are trining each other, and so this is helping bring change for the collective and the individual, because Gemini is about local people, right? Aquarius is about the community. So I think individually and collectively, this is helping people transform and change the way our society is, change the way we are individually, you know, help clear our mindset and make things more in line with the truth, because we're talking about Gemini. And Gemini is all about, you know, the written word, the spoken word. And, you know, both Uranus and Pluto are about transforming things in a way that's more in line with the greater good. Now, if that's not enough, when this retrograde is over, I do want to note it is finishing with a nice surprise. When Mercury stations direct on August 11th, it'll be at 4 degrees Leo, and we will have Venus and Jupiter conjuncting at 13 degrees of Cancer. You have the two benefics in signs that they perform well in. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, so he has more strength than Venus already does in Cancer. And in their conjunction, I think this is going to be a very pleasant surprise after maybe some turmoil, maybe some upheaval that has to be straightened out during this retrograde period. It gives me the feeling that if you have to put what you want to pursue on hold, to attend to something else, at the end of the retrograde cycle, you'll be pleasantly surprised with what it is that you wanted to put your attention to. You know, Jupiter in Cancer is all about the home and family. It's about, you know, what makes you comfortable and your sensitivities, and, you know, is very loving and very generous in Cancer. And then you have Venus on top of that, adding more sparkle to the Jupiter energies in Cancer. And I think this is really going to be like a light at the end of the tunnel after the Mercury retrograde period is over. We also will see Mars ingress in Libra when the retrograde is over. So it means Mars will surpass the South Node and make its way into Libra, which is its domicile. Mars is not strong in Libra. That's Venus's home. And it's the complete opposite side of the fence of where Mars wants to be in Aries. However, I don't think that's going to be too detrimental with Mars in Libra, because it shows that Mars will be focusing on relationships, focusing on justice, focusing on things that are fair and equal. And that may be part of the Mercury retrograde story, is coming to that conclusion, finding a way to create balance and harmony, and, you know, finding what's fair in things that may be going on in your life. We also will see Mars opposing Neptune and Saturn in Aries at the same time. So, you know, it could mean that what's fair may not be appeasing someone else. But unfortunately, sometimes what's fair isn't what's comfortable for everybody. So we also will see a kite formation when Mercury retrograde is over. And that means that something significant is coming in. Something significant is going to come about all of this. So I wanted to mention that because I know people frown upon Mercury retrograde. It's very well known in the general community, you know, when Mercury retrograde happens. But this one has a lot of flavor to it. And, you know, with the kite formation that is happening at the end, along with the Venus-Jupiter conjunction, I do really feel that majority of us will see some reward, some light at the end of the tunnel, it could be something, you know, significant that develops by the end of the retrograde cycle. So that is something to look forward to. I also want to note that when we had the recent Mars retrograde cycle, it stationed retrograde at 6 degrees of Leo and went back to 17 degrees of Cancer. Mercury retrograde is ending at 4 degrees Leo. And when we had a Venus retrograde in July of 2023 through September 2023, it started at 28 degrees of Leo and went back to 12 degrees of Leo. So it ended around the area where Mercury retrograde is beginning. So you may see some connections to what transpired during the Venus retrograde period in 2023 and the Mars retrograde period that started in 2024, because of the fact that it's going over some of the territory that we saw Venus and Mars go over during their retrograde cycle. So pay attention to that, because you may see something come back around from those times that we saw Venus and Mars retrograde. You know, there could be you know, I know a lot of people say with Mercury retrograde, someone could come back from the past. And I think because of this connection to the degrees where the Venus retrograde ended in 2023, I do think there's a possibility that something related to your love life that was happening during that time could come up during the beginning of this Mercury retrograde period, because it starts at 15 and goes through 4. So, you know, between that 15 and 12 degrees of Leo, if you have anything natal in your chart, definitely highly likely to see something come back up from that Venus retrograde cycle. And with Mars retrograde starting at 6 degrees Leo, working its way back into Cancer, for those of you that have anything between 6 and 4 degrees of Leo, I do think very strongly you'll see something related to the Mars retrograde cycle come back up during this Mercury retrograde cycle. So take a look at your chart and see if you have anything around those degree points, because chances are there's going to be something getting readdressed that you already went over or maybe experienced from those retrograde cycles. And so that is Mercury retrograde in Leo in a nutshell. Obviously, you know, we all know what to expect with miscommunications, travel delays, you know, tech issues, and all that. And so I'm not going to be redundant about that. But I did want to point out some things that I thought were interesting about this cycle. And, you know, if you're trying to do some traveling during this time and have some fun, I would brace yourself for maybe a change of plans that are going to happen. But I do hope that you still are able to enjoy your summer, even though Mercury retrograde is upon us once again for the next 24 days. So we will obviously be talking about this again before the cycle is over. And once it is over, we will readdress the Venus-Jupiter conjunction, the kite formation, and all that good stuff that comes after. So hang in there during the Mercury retrograde. Share your comments. Let me know what you're experiencing during the retrograde cycle. I'm always interested to hear everybody's stories, and like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thanks, and take care, everyone. Bye.